So why Neoplatonism? I mean, why do we need to know anything about these old philosophical scholars? The teachings of Plato were among the first to answer the big questions. Why is the world the way it is? How was it created? And why is it created? What purpose does it serve? And his teachings shaped classical thought, influenced and filtered down into religions, and it forms the foundations and cornerstones for Western esoteric traditions. So if you want to understand systems such as the Kabbalah, Gnosis, teachings of the Aram Solace and the Golden Dawn, then an understanding of Neoplatonism is going to be very helpful. So let's just jump straight in here and ask the question, just what exactly is Neoplatonism? And as the name suggests, everything starts with the teachings and philosophy of Plato, and in particular, his concept of the idea of perfect forms. So probably just best if I read the definition for you. So Plato's forms. There, these forms are, as he perceived them, a perfect, or they are perfect, eternal, and unchanging realities that exist beyond the material world. Everything in the physical world he saw as being an imperfect copy or shadow of these forms. For example, all circles that exist are imperfect reflections of the form of a circle. So I can see how some might think that's a bit abstract in the way that's put, but the simple version, or the way I like to visualize this, is that what Plato's actually saying is that everything in existence has a perfect prototype. Every concept has a perfect image from which everything is made. But everything in the material world is but a copy of the perfect prototype or the perfect concept. But Plato also tells us there is one form above all other forms, and this he terms the form of the good. And it's from this form that all other forms derive and come into existence. So these ideas of Plato, who by the way lived in the 4th century BCE, were further expanded upon in the 3rd century by a follower called Plotinus. So Plotinus takes the foundations from Plato and he expands these to build up an even more universal system. And the concepts he comes up with are right there at the top, the one, an even higher principle than Plato's form of the good. And this he describes as being pure unity and the source of everything. The next concept are the emanations, and the emanations flow out of the one and form a hierarchy. So everything in existence is simply an aspect of the one and is manifest by this hierarchy of emanations. Now the first emanation he calls the Nous, and this is the realm that he says contains all of Plato's forms. And this may well be thought of as the first spark, the first ideas, the first thoughts, and the first concepts. And some people even refer to this as the divine intellect, and it's the place where unity, stemming from the one, first becomes multiplicity, forming the multiple ideas, thoughts, and concepts. The next emanation he calls the world soul, but in today's, with today's understanding and culture, it's probably best to think of this as the universal soul. And this is the emanation that bridges the nous with the physical cosmos, the physical universe. This emanation could be perceived as the emanation that provides the mechanism that allows the interaction between the truly spiritual and the actual physical. It's also described as being the place where the seeds of all individual souls first reside. And at the lowest level, the one that's furthest away from the one, is that realm of matter, that place where we reside, imperfect and forever changing. So that's the basic foundations that Plotinus tells us about. But there's one more very important concept, and that concept is the endeavour to return back to the one. And this is accomplished by seeking true spirituality through contemplation, meditation, understanding, and philosophy, and of course through inner pure spiritual purification. So let's now look at the influences of Neoplatonism. And at the very beginning of the video I said that Neoplatonism had a very big impact on religions and belief systems, and occult and Western occult and esoteric theory. So let's just take a look at just exactly what those influences are. So obviously I can't go through them all, there's way too many, but I will go through some of the more obvious ones. And I'll put a list of them up here on the screen for you right now. So let's start with the Kabbalah. And the influence of Neoplatonism is quite clear here. Now, if you know much about the Kabbalah, you know that everything starts way at the top from what we may consider as the one. And the tree of life contains a total of 10 emanations. Now, these emanations in the Kabbalah are known as the 10 Sephira, and the very top three, known as the supernals, represents pure spirituality. So the Sephira at the very top, Keter, is the one which all the other Sephira emanate from. The next two in the tree, Chokmah and Bina, represents the first spark of creation. And these three supernals represents creation before formation. So this is the purely spiritual realm. It represents, much like the nous, ideas, concepts, and thoughts before they are formed into a material action. So although the Kabbalah takes much influence from other thoughts and other philosophies, it's quite clear to see the Neoplatonic influences within this system. In Hermeticism, we also have this concept that reality flows from a series of emanations from one ineffable God. And we're also told that the soul must rise back through the hierarchy of emanations to eventually unite with one. It's described as the ascent through a number of symbolic planetary spheres, shedding impurities until it's pure enough to unite with the divine. And we see the influences of Neoplatonism right from the times of Agrippa, right into the eras of Eliphas Levi, the Golden Dawn, and Aleister Crowley, as well as the Adam Solis, and all of these people, all of their systems drew heavily on Neoplatonism. And Gnosticism too, which I'm not going to go into great detail here, as there's a video available for you to see that explains all these concepts. But it's quite clear, if you watch that video, you'll see that Gnosticism is influenced very heavily by Neoplatonism. And for those that can see the spark and the potential, I'll put up a reading list here for further study. So I hope that discussion's been useful to you. And I hope we've managed to explain the base foundations and concepts of Neoplatonism in a manner that is clear and simple, and demonstrate just how much influence Neoplatonism has had in the world through religion and beliefs and modern day philosophy and esoteric thought. And if you have enjoyed watching today's video and you like this kind of content, then don't forget the old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this kind of material. And with that, I'll see you again very soon on the next one.